Well, a foggy day across the inland Northwest. That weather is expected to continue. So check out this photo posted online from Spokane Parks and Rec. Gorgeous photo. So the fog settled into the Latah Valley near High Bridge Park in Brown's Edition. Great photo. Right?
Yeah, I love that.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us for First at 4. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Jane is off today.
And I'm Tom Sherry. Gosh, we did have the fog and low clouds last night. I do think there's a chance we could get a little clearing at times over the weekend. Saturday's looking a little more promising for maybe a little afternoon sunshine. Fingers are crossed and double crossed. But in the meantime, as Mark was talking about, lots of cloud cover out there right now. We'll look for overnight lows to drop down to freezing. This is the forecast over the next 12 hours. I'll just give you the weekend forecast. And again, what we're talking about is a high of 40 with partly cloudy skies in the afternoon after we have some early morning freezing fog. And then we look for mostly sunny skies also for Sunday. So as you can see, we've got some good looking weather on the way. But again, over the next 12 hours, we're looking for temperatures mostly in the low 30s. And then overnight, I think some of that fog will freeze to the roadway.
Like that we'll see some sunshine this weekend. That could be good. Thank you, Tom. All right, moving on to other news now. A woman accused of shooting and killing the grandmother of her daughter faced a judge for the first time today.
So Ashley Horning was arrested yesterday morning after a 2-hour manhunt in North Spokane. Investigators believe that she walked into her ex-boyfriend's home on East Cataldo and shot his mother while their child was there. In court today, Horning refused to say her name and wanted to go by the name of Gypsy.
Well, her lawyer also said she doesn't remember anything. Horning is being held on a $1 million bond. We'll have the latest on this case and the suspect's appearance in court. That's coming up new at 5 tonight. Well, after 35 days, a deal has been reached to end the longest government shutdown in U.S. history.
So at the White House today, the president said that he is signing a bill to reopen the government for 3 weeks. That's until February 15th. Also, in his speech, the president reiterated his argument about why a border wall is necessary.
He said if Congress does not come up with a deal by the 3-week mark, he will either shut the government down again or use his executive power to address the issue of border security. He also took time today to thank federal workers.
I want to thank all of the incredible federal workers and their amazing families who have shown such extraordinary devotion in the face of this recent hardship. You are fantastic people. You are incredible patriots. Many of you...
About 800,000 federal workers have gone without pay now for more than a month. A big question amid the shutdown: when will the president deliver the State of the Union address?
So a lot of history is behind the annual report to the American people. We had our Whitney Ward dive into it. She joins us now with the details.
Good afternoon. Yeah, so to deliver his State of the Union address on Capitol Hill, President Donald Trump needs the blessing of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Today, following the president's announcement, Pelosi said there's still not a set date for the State of the Union. Now, nothing like this has really ever happened before, but there have been other twists and turns in the history of the State of the Union address. So for a little history, we went into the archives from the U.S. House of Representatives. Take a look. It all started with George Washington. He delivered the very first annual message to Congress back in 1790. But did the practice actually last very long? Turns out no. Thomas Jefferson pulled the plug in 1801. And instead of delivering a message as a speech, he started sending separate written annual messages. To Jefferson, he said a speech was just too royal. Now, for more than a century, every president followed Jefferson's lead and only gave Congress a written message each year. It wasn't until 1913 President Woodrow Wilson revived the practice of actually speaking before Congress. Back then, it was called the President's Annual Message to Congress. And it was FDR who adopted the phrase State of the Union Address. Now, several modern-day presidents have also passed on delivering a message during their first year in office. In his last year in office, Jimmy Carter actually offered only a written message. That was just before he gave Ronald Reagan the keys to the White House. Then in 1986, Reagan postponed his address because of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster earlier in that same day. Now, in total, there have been 95 in-person addresses, starting, as we said, with George Washington up until the very latest with President Trump just about 1 year ago. President Trump does promise that he will get this year's address soon. We just don't know quite yet when. Mark, back to you.
Whitney, thank you very much. New at 4 today, Governor Jay Inslee declared a state of emergency in response to more than 24 confirmed cases of measles in Washington state. Health officials say the number has now grown to 30 with more suspected. 29 of the cases are in Southwest Washington. One is confirmed in King County. Locally, the Spokane Regional Health District is now concerned about the outbreak spreading to eastern Washington.
Public health authorities say they want to reach those who have not been vaccinated, and they say they want to spread the word of how just infectious the disease really is.
It's a very tricky disease because even 4 days before you've had this rash, you can be infectious, right? So some people may not even know they have measles. They may not even know they were exposed to it. They themselves are infectious.
So as you heard right there, officials say the disease is extremely contagious, adding that those who may have been exposed should watch for early symptoms like a fever. And then doctors say measles can be easily confused with a respiratory infection or even the flu. But a signature rash develops and works its way from the back of the head down the body.
Yikes.
Well, there is an exciting milestone for a Washington-based company. We're talking about Boeing. They have delivered its first new tanker to the U.S. Air Force since the 1950s. This is the KC-46A. It is the first of 179 jets set to replace aging Air Force tankers. Right now, the Air Force is using tankers, as we mentioned before, from the 1950s. The contract with Boeing was announced nearly 8 years ago, and at the time, it was considered one of the most coveted defense contracts ever.
So this plane is considered highly capable. It has the ability to fuel 2 planes at once. It can also refuel in total darkness using infrared lights. The first tanker was scheduled to be delivered in 2017, but that schedule kept getting pushed back. The project actually ended up being over budget by nearly $4 billion. Wow. But despite being over budget, builders still expect to make money. Eventually, they say the Air Force will need nearly 400 refueling tankers there.
Beautiful plane.
No kidding. Salmon advocates in western Washington are asking lawmakers to fund a long overdue restoration project along the Skokomish River. Every year in Mason County, salmon are seen swimming across the road as the nearby river rises and floods in that area.
So neighbors say the quality of life is hurt by sediment buildup. Advocates say decades of human activity have created sandbars that block off the river's natural flow.
In the winter, we all have seen the fish swimming across the road. Also, during the summer, flows are low and it goes subterranean, so extensive. Thousands of feet of habitat and river are completely dry riverbed, which is not conducive to fish health.
The Natural Resources Director for the Skokomish Tribe says they are partnering with the county and the Conservation District to restore the river and the fish habitat. They've secured $15 million in federal funds, but they still need $13 million from the state.
Well,